Okay, right. So, okay, Raki. Shall I
Okay,
start?
live streaming started.
Yeah. That's it. So, right. So, good morning to everyone. So, now today topic is climate change, right? So, this is also a very important topic in your examination. Okay. So, in this climate change, every time one question is coming. Right. You see here. Right. Okay. So this climate change has been hottest topic, right? So even in the newspapers and TVs. So because there are so many issues, all of you know about this and related and revolving around this climate change, right? So first of all, we have to know what is the climate change, right? So there are two terms. Two terms you have to identify. You see here. So first one is weather. Okay, weather. And second one is climate. Okay. So, so what is the difference between weather and climate? So it means, so weather, you see here, the condition of the atmosphere over a short time period of time. So weather is the day-to-day phenomenon, right? So for example, the weather forecasting is on day-to-day basis, right? So now you see, in Hyderabad city, it was sunny yesterday, right? So, but it was in rainy and cloudy today, right? So that is the weather. So that is the day-to-day phenomena, right? So now, climate. What is climate? So the term climate is considered for the long duration of weather. You see here, average weather of a place over a period of many years, right? So it is the long duration of weather. So for example, an average of 10 years, right? 10 years conditions of weather is considered to be climate of that geographical area, right? So this is the difference between weather and climate change. So remember, in your examination, any climate change question they're asking, you can write first of all weather, what is the weather and what is climate. Okay. So you should write this one. Okay. So now what is climate change? So you see here, change in long-term weather pattern in term as climate change, right? So it has caused major shifts in temperature, rainfall, wind patterns. And the climate change has resulted in global warming as Earth has warmed unprecedentedly over the last few decades. So climate change is a serious environmental concern. So if you find any long-term change in this weather pattern, right? So it is considered to be the climate change, right? And it is the newest topic, right? No, not newest topic. So it is the oldest topic also, right? So because due to this climate change, many disasters are happening around the globe, are happening around the world, right? So and this climate change is caused by the what is that? Major shifts, right? Major shifts. Okay. So major shifts in the which one? Temperature, and rainfall, and also wind patterns, right? So for example, you take the southwest monsoon of India. So there is the rhythmical pattern for this occurrence of the southwest monsoon, right? So madam, I'm in class, ma'am. I'm in class. Yeah. Yeah, sure, ma'am. Sure. Wow. So southwest monsoon of India. So there is the rhythmical pattern for this occurrence of the southwest monsoon, right? So this southwest monsoon will touch the which one? Malabar coast, right? Malabar coast of India. So that is exactly first week, right? First week of June every year. First week, remember this. So this is July, right? So before month. So first week of June every year, right? So in where southwest monsoon will touch the Malabar coast of India. Okay. So but because of this climate change, the southwest monsoonal winds are becoming weaker, right? So, and these winds are not even in the mid of the June in certain seasons, right? So, and this would greatly impact the monsoonal rainfall of that year, thereby impact in the Indian agriculture, right? So, and this is the result of a consequence of an effect called, what is that? El Nino. El Nino effect. Okay, El Nino effect. So, which is also a part of this climate change, right? So now we can see number of consequences and effects due to this climate change. Um, this change in the weather pattern have ultimately resulted in global warming. Okay, resulted in global warming. So that is unprecedented warming of Earth from past few years. So especially in the last 100 years, right? Last 100 years. So if we have seen the average temperature of Earth is around how much? 13 degrees, right? 13 degrees Celsius. Okay. So if there is an increase of this 13 degrees Celsius, even by at least 0.5%, right? So that is, it will becomes 13.5, right? 13.5 degrees Celsius in future, right? So this will have a drastic impact on many geological landscapes of the earth, right? So especially on the glaciers and the polar ice caps, right? So hence, because of this, what is the reason? This global warming, right? Global warming. So there is quick and faster melting of the polar ice caps and also the glaciers. So, and this melting glaciers will result in the what? Rise of sea level. I already told about this rise of sea level. So this rise of sea level will consequently impact the coastal landforms and also human beings and also biodiversity living in this coastal region, right? So hence in future, with the ever rising the sea level, there will be a threat of inundation or drawing of these coastal landforms, right? So, in obviously, the result in the evaluation of the people living in the coastal areas and also the destruction of many plants and whether the agriculture is predominant, right? So, it is consequently result in the scarcity of food and food security of India. So because of this climate change, right? So these are many interrelated consequences, which is a greater threat to the very existence of human beings and other living organisms on the earth, right? So now we are going to, what are the effects of the climate change? You see here, the major effects are frequent cloudburst, wildfires, heat waves, cold waves, cyclones or hurricanes or typhoons, and floods and droughts, landslides, death of corals, loss of biodiversity, and melting of ice caps or melting of glaciers, and rise of sea level, and spread of endemic diseases, and also fluctuations in monsoon pattern. So these are the some of the effects, not some major effects, right? So major effects climate change, right? So now you see one by one. First one is frequent cloud burst. You see here. So what is the frequent cloud burst? Means, so around 8 years or something ago, there was a disaster, right? So where occurred in the state of Uttarakhand, right? It's not UK, Uttarakhand. So some of the yatris are the pilgrims. So who went to this Uttarakhand for Amarnath Yatra, right? All of you know about that Amarnath Yatra. So they were suddenly confronted with this natural disaster. So that is called cloud burst, right? So this cloud burst means what is that? Sudden and heavy downpour of rainfall at a specific place, right? So in this enormous rainfall is too much extended that. So it will result in a, what happens? Huge casualties, right? So that is the main reason. So this is cloud burst. And another next one is wildfires. So if you have seen the wildfires that are occurring in some of the California of USA, so this is also a result of the climate change. So it was also predicted that this kind of wildfires will become common in futures, right? So because of ever rising global temperatures, right? So these are the wildfires. And now this is the second reason, second effect. And next one is heat waves. So heat waves means all of you know in our um, Hyderabad, so in summer, so we have a lot of heat waves here, right? So the heat waves during in which season? Which season? Summers only, right? So heat waves effects on population resulting of exposure to extreme heat range from dehydration and also heat exhaustion and also deadly um, heat stroke, kidney problem, and lethargy and um, death, right? So along with other side effects such as poor work attendance or poor performance among the exposed population, right? So this is the reason. And next one is cold waves. So heat waves are coming in which season? Summers only, right? So, but cold waves is a weather phenomena, right? It is a weather phenomena. So that is distinguished by a cooling of the air, right? Cooling of the air. So these are during the, in which season? Winter, right? Winter are also result of this climate change, right? So a cold wave can cause death and injury to livestock and wildlife, right? So exposure to cold mandates greater caloric intake for all animals, including humans. And if a cold wave is accompanied by heavy and persistent snow, and grazing animals may be unable to reach needed food and die of hypothermia or starvation, right? So these are the cold waves. And next one is cyclones. So this is also very important, right? So cyclones, what are the cyclones? Floods or hurricanes or typhoons. So cyclones occurs very often in India, right? So on average, they happen about 10 times, right? 10 times a year. 10 times a year. So it's characteristically most of the cyclones are not very enter India's sphere of influence, but it also make landfall, right? So only some of the few storms turn away beforehand, right? So the most affected regions are eastern, right? Eastern and southern and uh, northeastern, right? Northeastern. So these are the most affected regions, right? Eastern, southern, and northeastern. So the typical cyclone season, it depends on the summer monsoon. So in the months before, what is that? May, right? May to June. Okay? May to June. And after that is October to November. So the most severe storms occurs. So in the recent times, we have heard of many disasters like cyclones, right? So these cyclones are affected in USA, India, and also some of the southeastern nations, right? So now you see here, this is the yesterday, 6/7/2024 satellite image of Indian Ocean, right? You see, this is the India, right? Now you see here, most violent cyclones in India since 2008. So recently in May 25th to 27, 2024. So what is the cyclone name? Remal, right? Remal. Right? So you see the what is the region Bay of Bengal, wind speed also is there, diameter is also there, air pressure is also there, right? So affected regions are eastern and northeastern, right? And next one is October 23 to 25, 2023. So this is the recent remark. Okay, Hamun. Hamun, so that is the most affected regions are eastern and northeastern. You see here same eastern and northeastern. So this is the 2023 and also this is the June 2023. That is Bay Parjoy, right? Parjoy. And next one is Mocha. So that is in May 2023, right? So affected regions are northeastern. And next one is 2022 in December. That is called Mondas cyclone, right? So affected areas are Andaman and Nicobar Islands and also southern part, right? And next one is October 2022. That is Sitram, right? Sitram. You see here, October 2022, and also that is the Sitrang affected regions, Andamans and Nicobars, right? And in May 2022, affected area also, Andaman Nicobar Islands, and that is called Asani and Java. Java means in December 2021. So most affected regions also Andaman, Nicobar and southern and eastern part of the India. And also you see here as. So this is in 2021 May. So most affected regions are Andaman, Nicobar's Islands and eastern part, right? You see here Takte in 2021 May. So western part and northern was most affected regions. And Takte. So same, right? So May 13 to 19 and May 14 to 19, right? Same. And Gurev is in the November 29th to December in the year of 2020. Most affected regions are southern part, right? And this is the 2020 Nivar and 2020 May Amphan and also Bulbul and Matmo in October to November 2019. So these are some of the most affected cyclones, right? You see here 19 Maha and also Kyar and November 2019 also and also Vayu 2019, right? Now floods, okay? Cyclones are over. Now floods. So we have seen the floods that occur in the state of Kerala, right? Kerala. And also Tamil Nadu, Orissa, and Andhra Pradesh, right? So the recent cyclone name is, what is that? Gaja. It have almost created a havoc in the state of AP. So which resulted in the loss of huge property. So in future, these kinds of cyclones and storms, they are very much frequent, right? Now we're going to droughts. So droughts are across the United States, the risk of droughts is expected to grow due to reduced precipitation, and also higher temperatures. What is the reason? Reduced precipitation and higher temperatures caused by climate change, right? So a drought is an event of prolonged shortage in the water supply. So whether atmospheric, that is below average precipitation, and surface water or groundwater, right? So drought is a recurring feature of the climate in most parts of the world. So however, these regular droughts have become more extreme and more unpredictable due to what is the reason? Climate change, right? So the drought impacts on society include anxiety or depression about what is the reason? Economic losses, right? And conflicts when there is not enough water, right? And reduced incomes and fewer recreational activities and higher incidence of heat stroke, and also even loss of our human life, right? So these are the droughts, about droughts. And next one is landslides. So the term landslide or less frequently landslips. Landslip refers to several form of mass wasting that may include a wide range of ground movement. So such as rock falls and deep-seated slope failures and mud flows and debris flows, right? So landslides occur in a variety of environments, right? And it is characterized by either steep or gentle slope gradients, right? So from which place? Mountain ranges, right? Mountain ranges to coastal cliffs or even underwater also. So in which case they are called in underwater submarine landslides, right? So the impact of a landslide can be extensive, including loss of life and destruction of some of the infrastructure and damage to land and loss of natural resources, right? So these are the about landslides. And next one is death of corals. So, what is the effect of this? The effect of climate change are a huge, especially on the this marine ecosystem, right? So, where the sensitive corals, right? Sensitive corals, they were bleached, and finally resulted in the depth of the corals, right? So, reefs, some of the reefs, right? REEF, reefs are threatened well beyond coastal areas. So the climate change, such as warming temperatures, causes coral bleaching. So which, if severe, kills the corals, right? So in 2008, 19%, right? 19% of the existing area of coral reefs, it has already been um, lost worldwide, right? So about death of corals. And next one is loss of biodiversity. So climate change has adversely affected both. Which one? Both means terrestrial and marine ecosystems, right? And it is expected to further affect many ecosystems, including mangroves, coral reefs, and also caves, etc. Right? So the increasing global temperature, more frequent occurrence of extreme weather, and also rising sea levels. So these are the among some of the effects of climate change. So that will have the most significant effect, right? Or significant impact. So it was predicted by the WWF, not World Federation. WWF means not that is fighting in our TV program, right? So this is the Worldwide Worldwide Federation. So that at least 1/5 of the species would extended of this kind of climate change event takes place at 2020. So 2020 is already gone, right? So now the 2024, right? So the loss of biodiversity and melting of ice caps and rise of sea level. I already told about this. Now, spread of endemic diseases. It means how to spread the diseases, right? So there is also, all of you know about the Tagore movie, right? That is the same process. So there is also threat of spread of endemic diseases, right? So which will affect both the human beings and also other living organisms. So you see from this person, it spread from here to here and here. And also it spread like this, right? Okay. Now, fluctuations in monsoon patterns. So it is a major threat, especially to India, right? So where almost 70%, right? 70% of the agriculture is depend on the which one? Monsoon rainfall, right? Monsoon rainfall. So the greatest evidence of climate change in the recent times, so that is 2016 is recorded as the, what is that? Hottest year, that is worldwide. I already told about this one, right? Hottest year, right? So this is the fluctuations of the monsoon, right? These are the effects, some important effects of the climate change, right? So any doubts in this PPT? Right, I will tell. Next one is what is the impacts, right? This topic, this is the second topic. So those are the before slides, those are effects, right? So these are the impacts. What are the impacts of the climate change? So under this impact on climate change, you see here, so agriculture and food security and Indian agriculture and water stress and water insecurity and rising sea level, coastal states, ecosystem and biodiversity, Indian biodiversity, climate change and health, right? So first, you see one by one, agriculture and food security, you see here. So, we already know peoples are depending on agriculture, right? So in most of the countries, right? And also agriculture allied activities. So what is happening is because of climate change. So we dealt with, so what is for climate change? So it is a change with weather weather patterns, right? So, and then because of the climate change, right? So the crop yield is decreased, and then lately, what is happening? So that is the water source or the fresh water or any water is getting depleted, right? So, and then last the pests, right? Pests also are increasing, right? So these are the causes of climate change in the agriculture sectors, right? And then after, what is happening is the greenhouse gases. These greenhouse gases, um, so that we already dealt with or more. So that is there are increasing and causing of positive effect. And then later it is increasing to how much? 3 degrees, right? 3 degrees, you see here, 3 degree Celsius. So because of the greenhouse gases, right? So what is happening here? The temperature is increasing up to how much? 3 degrees Celsius, right? So normally from 1 to 3 degrees Celsius is safe. But more than 3 degrees Celsius, what is happening? It's causes negative effect, right? So, and then mostly uh, in the islands of the low-lying areas, the land get submerged because of the increasing sea level, right? Increasing sea level. So, and the agriculture activities cannot be done in those areas, right? And hence this region suffers a lot. And especially is in Asia, right? Asia and also this Africa, Asia and Africa. So these are the most affected by the climate change, right? So because more than half of the populations are depend on which one? Agriculture and agricultural allied activities, right? And hence all these people will get affected because of due to climate change. So this is the overview of agriculture and food security, right? Now we are going to Indian agriculture. So we already know India is rain-fed, right? Rain-fed area, right? So, or it is dependent on monsoons for most of the agricultural activity. So, what is happening in India? The rain-fed shifts in timing, right? In timing. And this hugely impacts the economy of our country, right? And that is the rainfall which is supposed to come today is not coming and coming on some of the time, and hence the shifting pattern of the rainfall, right? So this is the really not good for the cultivators because this is the only dependent on the rainwater, right? So and then due to the economy will get affected also. And so what is happening here in India? The summer rainfall occurs for more than how much? 70, right? 70% of the total annual rainfall, but due to climate change. So the summer rainfall has been decreasing also, right? And the winter rainfall has been increasing, right? So this is the impact, right? So and then moving to the temperatures also. The temperature increase, that is the climate change, and because of the greenhouse gases, right? So there is a global warming that is prevailing in our globe or earth, right? So, and hence there will be increased in temperature. I already said that the crop yield, right? The crop yield in India hugely affected because of the, what is the reason? Increasing temperature and the shifting of the rainfall, right? Shifting of the rainfall. And then because of the increasing temperature, more amount and new amount of species and get developed into the agricultural sector. And that is the pests are getting increasing. And so in order to avoid the pests, you have to use pesticides or insecticides and find a new variety to overcome the pests, right? So the these fertilizers have to be concentrated, but in term, these fertilizers are not good for humans' health and it cause the health problems, right? So these are the agricultural impacts on India, right? So next one is water stress and water insecurity. So it is basically that you don't have enough water to meet your needs, right? So in this, the developing countries are mostly affected. What is the reason? Because of this water stress, right? So, and then what is happening here? Because of the scarcity of water, scarcity of water. So, there will be competition within the country and between the countries, right? So, for example, between what is that? Tamil Nadu, right? Um, Tamil Nadu and Karnataka, right? Tamil Nadu and Karnataka. So the between Tamil Nadu and Karnataka, which river is disputed? Kaveri. Kaveri river is Kaveri water is a dispute, right? So the happen is within the country and between the countries, right? So this is the point should we remember under water stress, right? And also glaciers. And these are the melting hugely. And then some rivers in North India, that is the Ganga, right? Ganga and Brahmaputra. So those are all flow because of the glaciers melt, right? And so these rivers depend on glaciers of the flow. So when these glaciers disappear due to climate change or increasing the temperatures, and these perennial rivers will get affected on a huge extended, right? So in the fresh water, this fresh water is getting depleted also, right? So due to various pollution levels, so the groundwater is being taken away or the groundwater is being polluted, right? So this is important to preserve fresh water, right? So now sea level rise. What is the sea level rise? So sea level rise is both due to thermal expansion as well as melting of ice sheets. I already told about this. So thermal expansion is and melting of ice sheets, right? So some satellites observations available since the early 1990s, right? 1990s, it showed that since 1993, sea level has been rising at a rate per year and significantly higher than the average during the previous half century, right? And IPCC report predicts that sea level could rise rapidly with accelerated ice sheet disintegration, right? So the global temperature increase, how much? 3 to 4, at about 3 degrees. It could result in 330 million people being permanently or temporarily displaced through flooding, right? And also warming seas will also fuel more intense tropical storms. So the sea level is the base level for measuring elevation and depth on Earth. So hence sea level rise is a climate change phenomenon, right? Through which the ocean water volume increases. So mostly as a consequence of ice sheets and glaciers melting and water thermal expansions, right? So as a consequence of sea level rising, coastal life around the world is threatened and adaptation policies that is need to be developed to avoid further and faster catastrophic impacts, right? So it is basically what it is an increase in the level of the world's oceans due to the impacts or effects of climate change, especially global warming. So which is induced by two primary factors, thermal expansion and melting glacier. What is the thermal expansion? I already told about this one. So when water heats up, heats up, what happens to the water? It's expand, right? It expands. So when it expands, what will happen? About half of the sea level rise over the past 25 years is going to be attributed to what? Warmer oceans. It means expanding and it is occupying more space, right? So one is the thermal expansion part that is giving rise to the sea level, right? So the second one is melting glaciers. So it is very commonly understood by all of us. So that if glaciers, so glaciers melt due to, what is the reason? Rising temperatures, right? So what will happen there? It will be rise in the sea level automatically, right? So why? Because, what is the reason? Why? Because what happens due to the large areas of ice or snow, which is melting. So it will lead to the diminishing of the glaciers. And the same time, what will happen? It will change the seasonality and seasonal patterns. So that is snowfall due to later winters and earlier springs. So that is related to the climate change, right? And also what happens? It leads to an imbalance, right? Imbalance between which one? A runoff and the ocean evaporation, right? So now remember, runoff is related to the surface water, right? So that is brought from the rivers to the ocean. And when we say runoff and ocean evaporation, if this balance is reduced or if this balance is actually disturbed, so it means that if there is more runoff and if there is less evaporation, right? More runoff means more, less evaporation, right? So what will happen if there is an imbalance that will lead to sea level rise? So that is one important point. And apart from the salinity and temperatures changes as well, so that we already know. So these are the two major primary factors. Remember this word, thermal expansion and melting of ice sheets. So which are of prime importance in terms of global warming and sea level rise, right? And next one is coastal states. So coastal states means coastal areas, right? Coastal areas are hugely affected. All of you know about this. So because of what is the reason? Water stress, right? Water stress. So however, the consequences of future climate change may be felt more severely in developing countries, such as India. So whose economy is dangerously dependent on agriculture, and it is already under stress due to current population increase and associated demands for energy and fresh water and also food, right? So you see some of the coastal areas, Maharashtra, Gujarat, Goa, Orissa, was cyclones in Orissa, and also Mumbai. Mumbai is also coastal area, right? So now, So you see the coastal states in Maharashtra, right? Maharashtra, Goa, and Gujarat. So these are face a grave risk from the sea level rise, right? So which would flood land, that is including agricultural land, and cause damage to coastal infrastructure and also other property, right? So Goa, in this Goa, also Goa will be the worst hit. So it is losing a large percentage of its total land area. So including many of its famous beaches and also some of the tourist places in and tourist infrastructures, right? And now Mumbai. So this Mumbai, that is a northern suburbs. So like Warsaw Beach. You see here, Warsaw Beach. And other populated areas along tidal mud floods and also creeks. So those are also vulnerable to land loss and increased flooding due to sea level rise, right? And flooding will displace a large number of people from the coastal, putting a greater pressure on the civic amenities and rapid urbanization, right? So now seawater means seawater percolation due to inundations. It can diminish freshwater supplies, making water scarce, right? So the states along the coast, like this Orissa, right? The Orissa will experience worse cyclone, right? So many species living along the coastal line are also threatened, right? So the coral reefs that India, it has in its biosphere reserves are also saline sensitive, and thus the rising sea level threatens their extinction too. So not only the coral reefs, but the phytoplankton and the fish stocks and the human lives, so that are dependent on it are also in grave danger, right? So people living in the Ganges Delta, that is share the flood risk associated with this rising sea level, right? And next one is ecosystem and biodiversity. So that is International World Wide Life Fund. It's called WWF, right? WWF, that is asserted that 1/5, right? 1/5 of the world's most vulnerable natural areas, it may be facing a catastrophic, right? Catastrophic loss of species, right? And now, Indian biodiversity. So what are the impacts on Indian biodiversity? So it is the predicted that there will be an increase in the phenomena of glacial lake and outburst floods. So in the eastern and central Himalayas, causing catastrophic flooding downstream with serious damage, right? So what are the impacts on India's biodiversity? India is a land of mega biodiversity, right? Mega biodiversity, and encompassing features from glaciers to deserts, right? So, however, this climate change is posing grave threat to its ecosystem, right? And also mountain ecosystems. So, these are hot spots of biodiversity, right? So, however, the temperature increases and human activities are causing fragmentation and degradation of mountain biodiversity. And Himalayan ecosystems, right? Himalayan ecosystems is considered as the lifeline not only to India, but also to our neighboring countries also, such as China. and also Pakistan, and also Nepal, and owing to the perennial rivers, so that arise out of the melting which one? Glaciers, right? So it is home to the largest amount of glaciers after the north and the south poles, right? So however, the climate change is threatening this life giver drastically. So it is also predicted that there will be an increase in the phenomenon of glacier lake outburst floods in the eastern and central Himalayas. What is the reason? Causing catastrophic flooding downstream, right? So now the Indian desert fauna is extremely rich in species diversity of mammals and winter migratory birds, right? So in recent years, recent studies have shown that the deserts have shown signs of expansion. So that's leading to a process called, what is that? Desertification, right? So the climate patterns have altered the natural attributes of a desert region. For example, the floods in the desert district of Barmer, right? Barmer, Barmer in Rajasthan, 2006, right? 2006. And coastal and marine ecosystem is one of the assets of India, right? So in the peninsular India, even the rivers of the peninsula are dependent on the monsoons, right? So the peninsular ecosystem is basically a depend on monsoon ecosystem, right? Now, climate change and health. So now, climate change. Climate change poses a host of threats to the survival of mankind, right? And each year about 80 lakhs, right? 80 lakhs people die from causes attributable to which one? Air pollution. And 1.8 million from diarrhea, right? Diarrhea. That is resulting from lack of access to clean water supply and sanitation and also poor hygiene. So, and 3.5 million from malnutrition and approximately 60,000, right? 60,000 in natural disasters, right? So a warmer and more variable climate would result in the highest level of some air pollutants, increased transmission of diseases through unclean water and through contaminated food and water, right? So the climate change has a direct impact on human health. So for example, the warmer the climate, the likelihood of its impact on human health becomes worse. So, right? So it is anticipated that there will be an increase in the number of deaths due to greater frequency and severity of heat waves and other extreme weather events. Ashok, క్లాసులు ఉన్నాయి అయింది ఇంకా హాఫ్ అన్ అవర్ ఉంది ఎన్ని గంటలకి So the climate change and resulting higher global temperatures are causing increasing frequency of floods and droughts, leading to the risk of disease infections, right? So lack of fresh water during droughts and contamination of fresh water supplies during flood comprise hygiene. So thus increasing rates of diarrheal diseases, right? And also endemic morbidity and mortality. So that are due to diarrheal disease, primarily associated with floods and droughts. So those are expected to rise in East and South and Southeast Asia due to projected changes in hydrological cycles, right? So now dengue fever is already in evidence at higher level of elevation in Latin America and parts of East Asia, right? And some of the studies suggest that climate change may swell the population at risk of malaria in Africa by 90 million by how much? 2000, right? 2030. You see area 2030, and the global population at risk of dengue by 2 billion, right? 2 billion by which year? 2080. Okay. So this is the climate change health. Okay. So impacts of climate change. Now this topic is over. Just wait. So just 5 minutes break. Just 5 minutes break. I will come in within 5 minutes. Okay. అయిపోలేదు కొన్ని క్లాస్ హాఫ్ అన్ అవర్ సరేనా So, right, welcome to back. So now we are going to next topic is climate system. Climate system. Okay. Now you see the Earth's climate arises from the interaction of four major climate system compounds. So those are first one is atmosphere. Sorry, atmosphere. It means air, right? And hydrosphere, it means water, right? And the lithosphere, it means, what is that? It means Earth's upper rocky layer, right? And the biosphere means living things, right? So remember, all of the Earth systems end with the world sphere. Okay? Sphere. So they're often also called the four Earth spheres, that is Z. Okay? Z. Okay? Z. Like Z. So the Earth is interconnected to these cycles, right? So these systems work together to create our world. So climate is the average weather. So it means the average state of the atmosphere for a given time scale. It means hour, day, month, season, and a year, decade, right? So the time scale typically over a period of how much? 30 years, right? 30 years. And it is determined by a combination of processes in the climate system. So such as ocean currents and wind patterns. So the circulation in the atmosphere and oceans, so those are primarily driven by solar radiation and transport heat from the tropical regions to regions. So that receives less energy from the sun. So the water cycle also moves energy throughout the climate system. In addition, the different chemical elements necessary for life, so those are constantly recycled between the different components, right? So the climate system can change due to internal variability and external forcings. So these external forcings external forcings, right? Or these external forcings can be natural, right? So such as variations in solar intensity and volcanic eruptions are caused by humans. So the accumulation of heat trapping greenhouse gases is mainly being emitted by people burning fossil fuels. So that is causing global warming. And human activities are also releases cooling aerosols, but their net effects is far less than that of greenhouse gases, right? So changes can be amplified by feedback process in the different climate system components, right? So now the components, what are the components of the climate system? Right. First one is atmosphere, right? This one, atmosphere. So atmosphere came from the word that is atoms, right? ATOMS, atoms, right? So which means steam or vapor, right? Steam or vapor. So the Earth's atmosphere envelopes. The earth and extends hundreds of kilometers from the our surface of the earth, right? So the atmosphere is the body of gases that surrounds our planet, right? So this is the atmosphere, and so the atmosphere is contains mostly of inert gases. Those are nitrogen and oxygen, and also remaining organs, right? So So nitrogen is 78% and oxygen is 21%, and also other remaining gases, that is 1%, called trace gases, that is argon. So includes water vapor and ozone, carbon dioxide, and also methane. So which absorb and then release energy as infrared radiation, right? So in the atmosphere, water vapor and carbon dioxide. So those are the gases most important for the working of the climate system, right? So gases in the atmosphere keep the average temperature of the lower atmosphere, that is a habitable 14 degrees centigrade, through a process known as, what is that? Greenhouse gases, right? So which allow visible light from the sun to penetrate to the surface. So but block some of the infrared radiation, the earth's surface emits to balance the sun's radiation. I already told in the earth radiation budget topic, this one, right? So this radiation causes rise the surface temperatures, right? So the hydrological cycle is the movement of water through the atmosphere. So not only the hydrological cycle and determine patterns of precipitation. So it is also has an influence on the movement of energy throughout the this climate system, right? And the gases in Earth atmosphere play other role as well as, for example, ozone, right? Ozone, O3. Ozone within the upper atmosphere, this ozone layer protects life from harmful radiation of solar radiation, right? So, and carbon dioxide is used by plants for photosynthesis. And water vapor. Water vapor condenses to form the clouds and precipitation that form our weather, right? So, this is the atmosphere. And next one is, second one is, this is the second one, hydrosphere, right? So, the hydrosphere came from what is the hydra, hydra, right? Hydra or hydro. So it is the Greek word, remember. So hydro means water, right? So it includes all the water covering the air, both liquid and solid form, right? So it ranges from 10 to 20 kilometers thickness, right? So it is the from the depths of the ocean to the ice-capped peaks of the mountains, right? And it is the component comprising all liquid surface and subterranean water, both fresh water, including rivers, lakes, and aquifers, and saline water of the oceans and seas. So the fresh water runoff from the land returning to the oceans in rivers influences the ocean's composition and circulations. So the oceans covering how much? 70%, approximately 70% of the Earth's surface, right? So the ocean circulation. it serves to transport heat from the equator to the poles. So in addition, those gases from the atmosphere can dissolve in the ocean, and that is to stored for many years in its depth, right? So however, when too much carbon dioxide is dissolved, seawater becomes more, what is that? Acidic, right? It making it harmful to marine life, right? So now, what is the water cycle? So one important process that happens in the hydrosphere, so that is called water cycle, right? So the water cycle describes the continuous, right? Continuous movement, right? You see a continuous movement of water on above and below the surface of the earth, right? So this is the water cycle. And next one is, third one is cryosphere, right? So in some books says cryosphere falls under hydrosphere, right? So the cryosphere contains all parts of the climate system where water is solid. Okay, where water is solid. So it means it is the frozen part of water. So this includes such as sea ice sheets, and permafrost and snow water. Snow cover, right? So because there is more land in the northern hemisphere, right? Northern hemisphere, and compared to the southern hemisphere. So a larger part of that hemisphere that is covered with snow, right? So most of the frozen water is contained in the ice sheets on this Greenland and Antarctica. So which average about 2 kilometers, right? 2 kilometers in height. Okay, 2 kilometers in height. So these ice sheets slowly flow towards their margins, right? So these ice sheets with their bright white color and ice and snow reflect large amount of incoming solar radiation, right? And solar energy back to the space. So ice also serves to insulate the ocean and land from the atmosphere. So the presence of ice can change the dynamics of wind and weather processes, right? And next one is lithosphere, right? So lithosphere, it comes from the Greek word means lithos, Lithos, right? Lithos. So which means rocky, right? Rocky. So the lithosphere, the latest sphere includes the rocks. So it means it includes earth crust and upper part of the mantle, right? And make up the lithosphere. So that's why it's also called as the crustal system. Okay, crustal system. So some books they call lithosphere as geosphere, right? So, however, there is a minor difference between the lithosphere and geosphere, right? So, the lithosphere is rigid and mechanically outer layer of the earth. So, and it is divided into 12 major plates. And now, other hand is geosphere. It is the solid body of the earth. So, for this class, we are just going to use lithosphere for the latest sphere and hydrosphere and atmosphere. So we are going to use lithosphere to avoid confusion, right? So the lithosphere is the land surfaces such as soil and rocks, and human man-made surfaces such as roads and buildings also. So the different materials that make up the lithosphere absorb different amounts of energy from the sun. So while mountains can slow or redirect winds and affect where rain falls, right? So our lithosphere consists of approximately the first 60 miles, right? First 60 miles of solid material from the surface of the planet down. So this is also referred to as earth crust, right? Earth crust. Okay. Now, so the most important process that happens in the lithosphere, that is the tectonic activity, right? Tectonic activity. So, the tectonic activity describes the interaction of huge slabs of lithosphere. So, those are commonly known as tectonic plates, right? So, these tectonic activities are the one responsible for some of the geological events. So, such as earthquake, volcanic eruption, and volcanic formation. And it is driven by the Earth's internal heat, and it is said that the earth internal heat flows to the surface. So this thought to be much 80%, right? 80% due to mantle convention, right? Mantle convention. So the mantle convention describes the movement of the mantle as it transferred heat from the inner core to the lithosphere, right? So the lithosphere constantly changes because of shifts in the tectonic plates, right? Tectonic plates. So the volcanic eruption affects all of Earth spheres, right? All of Earth spheres. So the magma, suppose the magma coming up through the Earth is part of the lithosphere, right? So the gases and materials from the, suppose this one, right? Earth part. So this is the lithosphere. So the gas and materials from the eruption move from the lithosphere into what is that? Atmosphere. So the lava pouring down the volcano will change the biosphere. And while the condensation of water alters the hydrosphere, right? So this is the volcanic tectonity. And biosphere, what is the biosphere? Lastly, the biosphere, it comes from the root, right? Root word, R-O-O-T. Bio means life, right? Bio means life. So it also interacts with the rest of the climate system, right? So the bio meaning life. So it contains all of the life on the earth. So the biosphere refers to the living things so that are found on the earth. So even on the parts that appear to be uninhabited, right? So the biosphere overlaps the atmosphere, lithosphere, and hydrosphere, right? So we are part of the biosphere. So as are the crops that we grow and the pets, so that we keep every living being from tiny bacteria to blue whales. So that is part of Earth biosphere, right? So the earlier life from is about how much? 3.5 to 3.7 billion years ago. And these are the microorganisms, right? So one type of microorganisms that forms are prokaryotes, right? Prokaryotes. So these are survived without oxygen, without oxygen. So now we call them an aerobic microorganisms, right? Aerobic micro organisms. So in the biosphere, there are different ecological communities, or we can call this biomass, right? Biomass. Okay. So some example, the tropical rainforest and tundra and deserts, right? These are some of the examples. So we can find some living things on the desert, but we cannot find them on tundras, right? So now, so the biosphere is considered as the carbon dioxide sink of the earth. So a carbon sink, right? Carbon sink is actually aggressive. So that is what absorbs and stores the atmosphere's carbon. Remember, this is not a carbon source. So it's actually gets the carbon only, right? So now there are two types of carbon sinks, right? That is natural and artificial carbon sinks, right? So for example, natural carbon sinks. So natural carbon sinks is a tree or a forest. So they absorb carbon dioxide from the air, right? And artificial carbon sinks are, of course, man-made, right? Man-made. So example, that is a process called artificial carbon sequestration. This one, right? Artificial carbon sequestration, right? So now this carbon sink is important for the this carbon cycle, right? So now this carbon sink is important for carbon cycle. This diagram shows the carbon cycle, but it's not important in this lesson. I already told about this cycle in the previous class, and it is the biogeochemical cycle by which carbon is exchanged among the biosphere, geosphere, hydrosphere, and atmosphere of the earth, right? So basically, it's the natural way of reusing the carbon atom, right? So time is up, right? So I think time is up. Okay. So I will explain from this chain reaction in next class. Okay. So any doubts in this lesson? So any doubts? Okay, right.